China doesn't need a single soldier on Taiwanese soil. No missiles, no invasion, just 90 days of doing this. And the American economy collapses. But here's what nobody's asking. If this is so easy, why hasn't China done it yet? If China blockades Taiwan starting tomorrow, not invades, just blockades, your next iPhone jumps from $999 to at least $1,400. The car you're waiting on? Add 2 years to the wait, or $12,000 to the sticker price. Your $401k? The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis projects a 5 to 10% contraction of US GDP. That's $1. 3 trillion gone. Not eventually. Within 90 days. I cross-referenced 5 independent institutions on this. Rand Corporation's 2025 contingency study. The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis conflict paper. February 2025. CSIS's Crossroads of Commerce report. October 2024. Rhodium Group's supply chain disruption analysis. And a peer-reviewed tabletop exercise study from Science Direct. March 2025. Here's what they all agree on and what the media keeps missing. Taiwan is not just a chip factory. It is the single point of failure for the entire global technology supply chain. TSMC alone manufactures 92% of the world's most advanced chips, everything below 10 nanometers. Every Nvidia GPU, every Apple processor, every chip inside US military sensor systems. One island, one choke point, 0 alternatives ready. And China knows exactly how fragile this is. But chips are only layer 1 of this trap. Layer 2 is where it gets really dangerous. Most people stop at chips. That's the story everyone tells. But there's a second layer that almost nobody is talking about. The Taiwan Strait is 110 miles wide. Right now, almost half of the world's entire container fleet passes through it. 88% of the world's largest ships by tonnage use this route. Bloomberg verified this. CSIS confirmed it in October 2024. This isn't just electronics. Oil from the Middle East to Japan. Coal to South Korea. Raw materials from Africa to China. $2. 45 trillion worth of goods move through this strait every single year. Remember when the Ever Given got stuck in the Suez Canal for 6 days in 2021? That cost global trade $9.6 billion per day. The Taiwan Strait handles more traffic than the Suez. Every single day, ships can detour around Taiwan's eastern coast through the Philippine Sea. That adds roughly 1,000 extra miles per voyage. That detour costs $300,000 in extra fuel per voyage, 9 extra days per trip. And it means skipping port calls in China, the world's largest exporting nation. Shanghai, Ningbo, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, 4 of the world's busiest ports, sitting directly across the Taiwan Strait. Cut the strait. You cut access to all of them. Simultaneously, America's 2 most critical Pacific allies, Japan and South Korea, depend on this strait for nearly 1/3 of all their imports. A blockade cripples them before it even reaches US shores. Here's what makes this infuriating. The US government commissioned analysis on exactly this scenario. Rand published it. The Federal Reserve modeled it in February 2025. The data is public. It just never gets explained to regular Americans. And here's the number buried in those reports that should terrify every American. A blockade hurts China roughly 7% GDP contraction. But it hits America almost just as hard, with one critical difference. The difference? China has state control over its economy. It can absorb pain for years. The US consumer economy cannot. It starts breaking in weeks. US manufacturers keep on average 3 to 6 months of chip inventory. After that buffer hits 0 production lines, stop. No cars, no phones, no medical devices. No backup plan exists that can activate in time. But here's what I haven't told you yet. China didn't stumble onto this vulnerability. They engineered it. And the proof is hiding in plain sight right after this. Layer 1 was chips. Layer 2 was shipping. Layer 3 is the reason China doesn't even need the blockade to work perfectly. The moment China announces a blockade before a single ship is stopped, global financial markets collapse. Instantly, we have a precedent. The day Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, before a single sanction landed, markets moved violently on fear alone. Taiwan is 10 times larger in economic impact than Ukraine. The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis confirmed this in their February 2025 paper. Institutional investors move first. Hedge funds exit within hours. Pension funds follow within days. Your 401k gets hit last, but it gets hit hardest. And here is the part Washington never says out loud. China holds $3.2 trillion in US Treasury bonds. The Fed paper specifically warns Beijing could begin selling those assets before any blockade starts. If China dumps even 20% of those holdings, US borrowing costs spike, mortgage rates follow, the housing market freezes. And this happens before the blockade physically closes a single shipping lane. Most people think, blockade chip shortage, US pressures China to stop. That's the A to B thinking. Here's what actually happens. Blockade announcement, market panic, financial contagion, US economy destabilized before the military even responds. China can survive this pain. It has state rationing, energy reserves, and political control over its population's reaction. The US has none of those tools. A democracy cannot hide a recession from its voters. The hidden winner in a blockade scenario is not the side with more missiles. It is the side that can tolerate economic pain longer. And that is not America. Which brings us back to the question we opened with. If this weapon is this powerful, why hasn't China pulled the trigger? The answer might be the most important thing in this entire video. Here's the paradox nobody in Washington wants to admit out loud. China has the military capability to blockade Taiwan today, but China still receives over 50% of Taiwan's chip exports. A blockade doesn't just hurt America. It cuts off China's own technology supply chain, Huawei, BYD. Every major Chinese tech manufacturer depends on chips from Taiwan for products they sell globally. A blockade is a weapon that wounds the hand holding it. China's most advanced domestic chip is currently stuck at 28 nanometers. TSMC is producing 2-nanometer chips in mass production right now. That is a 10-generation technology gap. China cannot replace Taiwan's output, not for at least 7 to 10 years. But here is where the paradox tightens into a trap. Every year, the US CHIPS Act brings more domestic fabs online. China's blockade leverage shrinks. The CHIPS Act has already catalyzed $450 billion in private investment across 90 projects. TSMC Arizona is already producing 4-nanometer chips. A second fab comes online in 2026. By 2028, the US will have meaningful domestic advanced chip capacity for the first time in decades. This means China's optimal window to use a blockade as economic leverage is closing. RAND's 2025 contingency study specifically identifies 2025 to 2027 as the highest risk period. After that, US leverage improves significantly, and China knows this, which is why every military analyst watching the Taiwan Strait right now is focused on one specific window: the next 24 months. So what does all of this mean for you right now, today, in your actual life? Forget geopolitics for a second. I want to show you your number, not America's number, yours. Here is what happens to your actual life in 3 stages. And the third stage is the one nobody is prepared for. 6 months in, Apple cannot source enough TSMC chips for its next iPhone production run. Supply drops 40%. Price jumps to at least $1,400. And that's if Apple can even ship on schedule. 12 months in, US automakers halt production lines. During the 2021 chip shortage, which was minor compared to this, Ford and GM lost a combined $10 billion in revenue in 1 quarter alone. 18 months in, medical device manufacturers start rationing. MRI machines, ventilators, insulin pumps. Every one of them runs on advanced chips. This is not hypothetical. The FDA flagged semiconductor dependency in medical supply chains in 2023. And the one nobody talks about: US defense systems, F-35 avionics, missile guidance chips, AI-enabled radar, all sourced from TSMC. The military has priority access, but that priority queue runs dry after 18 months too. Now, let's look at where this actually goes. 3 scenarios. Starting with the worst. Worst case, 20% probability. China announces a full blockade in 2026. Markets crash 30% in the first week. US chip buffer runs out in 90 days. GDP contracts 8%. Recession is confirmed before Congress agrees on a response. Most likely scenario, 60% probability. China escalates to a partial quarantine, not a full blockade, between 2026 and 2027. Enough to pressure Taiwan politically. Markets drop 15 to 20%. Chip prices spike 25 to 30%. A negotiated framework emerges by 2028. Best case 20% probability. CHIPS Act domestic fabs come online faster than projected. US semiconductor self-sufficiency reaches 30% by 2027. China's blockade leverage shrinks to the point where the risk-reward calculation no longer makes sense for Beijing. Here is what you can actually do right now. First, diversify your portfolio away from single-source chip dependency. Nvidia, AAPL, AMD, all heavily exposed. They are not bad companies. They are geopolitically vulnerable companies. Second, look at domestic semiconductor exposure companies benefiting from the CHIPS Act build-out. Intel's fab expansion. Domestic semiconductor ETFs. Defense contractors with chip manufacturing contracts. These gain value in every blockade scenario. Third, and this is the one that gives you a 2 to 3 week head start on everyone else. 3 signals will appear publicly before any official announcement. PLA naval exercises exceeding 72 hours near Taiwan. Shipping insurance premiums in the Taiwan Strait spiking. And CHIPS Act fab completion milestones, each one shifts the balance of power. Watch these 3. They move before markets do. Sources are linked in the description. Every data point in this video comes from publicly available institutional research, not opinion, not speculation. RAND, 2025. Federal Reserve Street, Louis February 2025. CSIS October 2024. Rhodium Group. Science Direct March 2025. I cross-referenced GDP impact figures from 3 independent economic models. Shipping data from CSIS and Bloomberg. Chip market share from TrendForce Q1 2024. And the US International Trade Commission. What I don't know and won't pretend to know. China's actual political decision timeline is classified. The exact pain threshold that triggers Beijing's calculation is unknown. And whether the 2025 to 2027 window produces action or just pressure, nobody outside the PLA knows that answer. What the data does tell us is this: a 14-mile wide strait and a 36,000 square kilometer island are holding the global economy together right now. Not military alliances, not diplomatic agreements. Chips and shipping lanes. So why hasn't China pulled the trigger? Because right now, the weapon wounds the hand holding it just as much as the target. But that calculation changes as China closes the technology gap. The clock is running. The blockade is the weapon. But the Pentagon's response plan, what they're actually preparing for in the next 24 months, that's the timer. And that analysis runs deeper than anything you've seen covered. It's the next video. Don't wait on it.